Hi, Kennedy.
There are a lot of you here. So, I'm just going to start a little introduction. My name's Kennedy, and I've been a middle school leader for like two years? Like, yeah, 2 years. Nick asked all the seniors to teach, and so I wasn't really sure what to teach on because he didn't give us anything. He was just like, seniors teach, and I was like, all right. So everybody's been doing theirs on evangelism and stuff, and mine, I want to do more on my testimony because I have done my testimony from middle school because I was teaching middle schoolers, and I also taught LeJeffrey about faith. So I'm going to talk about some things that I honestly didn't ever think that I was going to talk about. So just bear with me and be mature about it, okay? So before I start, I just want to say that no matter what happens, God is always good, and his plan always works for the good. No matter what happens, it always ends up being good. Even if it's in like 120 years, or if it's in like a day, it will always be good because that's how God's plan works. And so my freshman year, it wasn't my favorite year because coming back from middle school, I didn't have a lot of friends, and I didn't think, like, I really hated school, and I was just like, felt like a loser, and I was like self-conscious and stuff. And so freshman year, I blocked out a lot, so I can't think of a lot of it, but I always remember that I didn't have any friends, but God was always there. Anytime that I was gonna like go to lunch and I was like, crap, I don't know who I'm gonna sit with because I don't have any friends, I'm probably just gonna sit in the hallway alone. Every time that happened, God always put someone in my life to sit with. It was super simple and super small, but I never went to lunch by myself. I remember that. In freshman year, I was super against parties, alcohol, drugs, everything. I was like, nope, not a thing, not happening. I was considered the super Christian, and so when people would talk to me, they'd be like, oh, we don't talk to her because she's like a Jesus freak, and I was like, I don't know, you gotta be known for something, right? I was a Christian, but I considered myself a Christian, and I was a Christian, but I hadn't had that hoorah Jesus. I hadn't had that moment yet. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I don't know any freshmen that really do know what they want to do with their lives, but you guys do get that freshman year, good job, because that's awesome. So then sophomore year was a little bit better. I started to have more friends, and I started to branch out a little bit more. I started going to school functions. I went to Reno at the time, and so there was so much school spirit, and I kind of was starting to dig it. My friends that I had were friends from elementary school that I just kind of followed up through. Then sophomore year, I got my first boyfriend, go team, and it was an awful relationship. And it only lasted a month, but we were best friends, then we broke up, and then we weren't friends anymore. So that's how that worked. After that relationship, I had my first exposure to alcohol party. And I went to my first party and got super drunk, and then my life started to change. My grades started to slip, and I was taking so many honors classes my sophomore year. It wasn't so many, Grace takes 1,000 and she's fine, but I took maybe 3, and it was so many for me, and it was so much, and I couldn't handle it, and so I cheated my way through sophomore year. I would not do my homework, I would just ask somebody else for my homework, I would cheat on tests, and I got all the way through. I remember I cheated all the way through honors English like that, so don't do that. It's not worth it, you don't learn anything. I lost a lot of motivation sophomore year. I lost so much that it's affecting me senior year. But I think that just kind of happens to every high schooler where you're just you just kind of lose all will to do anything because you're just so tired. But it's good. I promise high school's fun. So sophomore year, I was starting to think about maybe what I wanted to do with my life, and I was like, okay, maybe I want to be a therapist because I enjoyed helping people. But then it was it wasn't a for sure thing that I wanted to do. It was just kind of something that I threw around. That summer, I got a job for the first time, which was pretty exciting. And I got a boyfriend, and he was a Christian. And it was pretty awesome, and then it didn't work out because we never saw each other. But it was kind of cool because he was very against partying, so it kind of made me a better person. So I was like, oh, okay, I can't do that anymore, because I was still partying very best. What are you doing back there? So that summer, after that kid and I broke up, I went very downhill, like insanely downhill. I remember one time I was out at Pyramid, and I remember it was 3 a.m. and I was super drunk, and I didn't know where I was going that night, and I told my mom a lie, and I was super drunk, and I didn't know where I was supposed to be in the morning, and the cops showed up, and it was just really scary, and I slept in the dirt for like all night, and it was really scary. And so don't put yourself in those positions, because you don't know what's going to happen. And then I had to sleep next to some kid that I didn't even know. That was super weird. But something that I noticed every single time is God was always there. I knew that I shouldn't have been doing it. I knew that I shouldn't have been doing it. But God was always there, because I remember every time that I would start to drink, I would get shaky. And I was like, this is weird. This is not supposed to happen. And so I was like, and then I would just get past it. And I was like, it's not even that big of a deal. Like, it's fine. After camp last year, I stopped going to church because I kind of needed a break. There were some things going on in my life, and I was super busy, and it did have a little bit to do with the fact that I was now partying and stuff, and I just kind of didn't want to come back to church because I was starting to realize things. But I still went to big service. I just didn't have a youth group. Then the end of that year, I got another boyfriend, but he was not a Christian, and he did not like me partying, and so I did not party anymore. I just kind of stopped. And then I started kind of like living a double life, because on the outside, with all of my church friends and my family, I would tell my mom and everything that I was fine, I'm just like a normal like Christian girl, and I didn't do anything. And then with like outside of that, I was going and I was getting high and I was drinking still. I just wasn't going to parties. Then I was always like, I said that I slept at Pyramid like at 3 a.m. drunk, but I always tried to stay as safe as I could. I would always bring somebody with me so that I wouldn't like, get hurt or whatever, but I mean. Then that year I went to Mexico, and it started to open my eyes about two things that like I could do after high school. So it actually did open my eyes about what I want to do with high school, and it's still opening my eyes. After high school, the people down in Mexico, they're teenagers, or they're like fresh out of high school, and they go, and they don't go to college first, they go and do DTSing, which is like 6 months of mission work. And it's something that I'm super interested in, and it's something that I plan on doing after high school, so that was kind of cool that I got to go to Mexico and do that. And from then on, this was last year, this is junior year, from then on, I've been having like insane like God moments. Like you can see God everywhere, and it's freaking me out. But I'm gonna tell a story that I'm pretty sure you guys have probably heard before. It's called the Danilo story. So, exactly, okay, we got people who haven't heard it, okay? So, when we went to Mexico, we were driving down there, and we were coming back through the border. So, when we're going through the border, there's like 12 of us in a van, 12 of us, 10 of us, whatever. And our driver is from our base, so we don't really know him, that we just kind of, trust them that like they'll take us there. So, they're supposed to take us through the border and then to the airport at San Diego. Okay. And so, we were driving, and then we got to the border, and we all had our passports, we were all good, but like they kept questioning our driver, and they were like, what are you doing? Like, when was the last time you'd been to Chicago? And they kept asking why he's going to Chicago, but he'd never been to Chicago. And then they pulled us into secondary assessment. In secondary assessment, they pull you over and they like park you, and then you look around, and then there's like big dogs and guys with big guns, and it's like super scary, and they take people to jail here. And so we're all chilling there, and the Border Patrol guy just keeps asking our driver a bunch of questions, and our driver had been from Brazil, and he was working in Mexico, so they didn't trust his visa and his passport and stuff, and so they ended up taking our driver. So now here's a bunch of people from Sparks who don't really know where we are, and so we have to drive to the airport and get ourselves on our flight, and we're already kind of late because we've been in Border Patrol for like almost 2 hours now. And so then, as we're leaving, our plane left at like 7, no, I can't remember, but I remember we got there, And we got there, and we were like, we didn't think we were going to make it, and then there was still a bus behind us who still hadn't showed up, and then 10 minutes in, like 10 minutes before our flight left, they showed up, and it was just super cool because throughout the whole thing, like all of the adults were like freaking out in our car, but we had like a teenager like van, and like we were all chilling. We were like praying, we were like, God's got this, like this is all God, God's gonna do it. And he did, and he delivered, and we were on the plane, and we even landed early. Like it was crazy cool. So that was just like a side thing, another God cool thing. So then after that, I came home and went back to partying. And so then I got in really big trouble at the beginning of this year. Like really, really big trouble. Like literally I was MIA for 2.5 months. Like all my friends were like shaking their heads up and down like, yes, I was gone for that long. Like I was not allowed to go to church. I wasn't allowed to have my phone or anything because I was picked up by the cops at like 3 a.m. again. And my mom took me home, and my mom thought this was a one-time thing. She thought that I had done this one time. And then, so I was only grounded originally for a month. So she was like, oh, it's fine. She learned her lesson. She'll just do a few chores, and then it'll be over with. And then I kind of had my iPod on me, and I was texting, and then my mom found my iPod, and then she started, she found out that I was doing more than just getting drunk the one time that I was getting high too, and so she was like, nope, you're done, that's it. And so I was then grounded for longer. But this was kind of, throughout the time of me partying and all that, I knew that I shouldn't have been doing it, and I knew that I had to be stopped. Like, I knew that I needed God to stop me, but I was not going to be the one to stop myself. So I was like, I would like pray that God would stop me, but at the same time, I really didn't want to. But I knew that I had to. So when I got caught, I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to, like, this is supposed to happen. And so, like, it really sucked being grounded for that long and being that, like, isolated. So during this time, I had a lot of time to do, because I had a lot of time because I had nothing to do. So I just started reading the Bible. So I read, like, every single day, and I got really into it. And I read Revelations for my first book in the Bible, which is kind of when you tell, like, yeah, everybody's like, yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yes, it is.
I just wanted to know, like, how's the world going to end, or how's that going to work? And I thought it was kind of really cool because from, like, an artist perspective, it has so many cool imagery things. It was so cool. And so, like, I thought that was awesome. And then James is, like, one of my other favorite books, and I read that all the time. But then I started to realize that Christ, because before, when I was a Christian, it was just like the preachy part of God. Like, it was just like, oh, you're saved. Like, it's all cool. But it's like, it wasn't enough. It was just like, you can say that so many times, and it's just like, eh. And then, so when I started reading the Bible, I realized that there's deeper meanings to things. Like, why does the earth turn the way that it does? And how does that connect back to God? Or why are we this way and this way? And it just kind of like blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God, this is like deeper thinking. It's like super cool. So then I still hadn't gone back to church yet. I still hadn't gone back. And so I met with, my mom made a thing with Bonnie and Eugenia, like a meeting. And I think it really scared Bonnie and Eugenia because I started crying because I didn't know why we were meeting. And so we just kind of like figured out some things for me to come back. And that was really awesome because it like, now I was getting back into church, and now I was actually like waking up, and I was like, okay, I need to like wake up and like get my life straight. And then we were going through this series, and it was the question series where we just like asked a bunch of questions, and Nick like answered them. And that was so cool because I had been reading the Bible recently, so I was like, I got questions. So they got answered, and it just made me like deepen that relationship with Christ. And I think when I got in trouble, I really actually like became a Christ follower, like for real. Like I took my faith on my own. And that was such like a big moment for me. And it was like at camp, everybody was having all of these like amazing like Christ encounters and stuff. And it was really cool because I had already had that, and I got to watch other people go through that. And so my entire focus started to change because I was now focused back on God and not myself and the things of this world. So God started opening things to me, and so opening my eyes to things. And so when I was at Reno, I was not in a friend group with people who were doing the best things, and I wasn't there for like my passions and what I wanted to do. I was just there because my mom worked at the elementary school, and I just followed up through. And so when I came back, I started to realize that maybe I wasn't supposed to be at Reno. I was like, well, maybe this isn't the school for me, because I never really felt accepted at Reno. So Sammy kind of kept telling me, she was like, oh, come to Alpine, come to Alpine. And I was like, oh, it's kind of a weird school. But then I went to the school, I went to some open house thing. And I don't know if you guys know me, but I'm really into art. Like, it's just kind of like something that I enjoy. And so the art teacher talked to me, and I had only had one art class at Reno. And to get into like the AP art at Reno, you have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you get AP. So you have to do it your senior year. I went and talked to the art teacher there, and she's like, have you had art 1? And I was like, yep. She's like, hey, you're in my AP art class. And I was like, you haven't even seen anything that I've done. So that was super cool, and that was kind of like a selling factor for me. So I was like, okay, so I guess I'll go. So I was just, and I didn't know if that was what I was supposed to do, so I was just kind of like, okay, God, this is yours. You can decide, and you bless me in this, or you, like, this is your decision, and I'm just going to follow through. And so when I told my friends at Reno that I was switching schools, nobody was sad that I was leaving, and it hurt so much. But it was just kind of like, okay, I made the right decision. I'm switching. But it was like, it was a huge eye-opening thing. Then God kept opening doors for me to go do mission work. And it was just like, every single time my mom was like, okay, you can go do this. Or, okay, like, it was just, everything kept opening. Then I'm still dating this kid that I had been dating from the beginning of junior year. And he wasn't a Christian, and it wasn't a big deal for me at the beginning of our relationship. And so about like February, I felt God tugging on my heart, and he was like, you're not supposed to be in this relationship. You're not supposed to be in this relationship. And 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can have light with darkness? And that constantly played in my mind. It's like, they say, like, don't, like, be in the world, but not be of the world. And I think being in that relationship, I was being of the world. And it was something that wasn't making me a better person, because he wasn't a Christian. And every single time that I ever asked him to come to church or anything, he would make up an excuse and then pretend like the conversation never happened. And it hurt so much because it was such a big thing to me, and he just blew it off. And I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to be in this relationship. But I could not get myself to break up with him. And this happened for 6 months, that I was like, do I break up with him, do I not? And so I finally did it. And some of the like leading factors, because I was constantly praying about it, constantly. And God spoke to me a lot through songs. I would listen to Caleb, and he would just like speak to me through it. And so one of them was Thy Will Be Done. And so I was like, if I do this, then it's just, you know what, God's going to take this. No matter what happens, I'll be okay. And so I just kind of let that happen. And then another song was If I Told You My Story. And it's about, if I told you my story, then I wouldn't be telling my story, but I would be telling the story that God like is using through me. And so I was thinking, I was like, well, if my boyfriend had asked me what my story was, or if he told me that, I wouldn't be telling about myself, I'd be telling about God. And that wouldn't be okay with him. And I was like, if that's not okay with him, like, why am I with him? And so I broke up with him. And this was such a huge moment for me, because it was something that I finally did for myself. And afterwards, there were so many things that happened that was just like, God was like, good job, you were not supposed to be there. And it's just so cool, because now I'm just like, I feel better, I feel like a more confident person, because I can take my faith on my own. So now senior year, here I am. I'm planning on going and doing a DTS after high school, so the mission work. Then college, Christian-based college. I'm going to try to focus on my art. I am so much happier at Alpine because I can do my art, and Sammy, of course, yeah, also. And I've grown so incredibly much this year. Like, they say that like senior year is like a huge year, and I was like, it's not gonna be that big. And now it's like, there's so much. And when I got in trouble earlier this year, my mom and I's relationship was really broken, and it really broke me, because it was like, my mom was kind of like my mom and I fought a lot, but it's like, it was so broken and it hurt so much. I remember her telling me that I like disappointed her, And that was just something that just like kind of stuck with me, and I was like, what? I disappointed you? Like, I didn't think I could like do that because you're like my mom, you know? And so now, like, my mom's like my best friend now, so that's like super cool. Also, don't take advantage of your parents because they love you so much and they just want the best for you. And so I did this thing. Oh, also, another verse that like I kind of love because it has walked me through like my whole high school, wow, words are hard, walked me through high school was, for we live by faith and not by sight. And that's 2 Corinthians 5:7, because you can't do things on your own. God can do things through you, and I think that's really important. So, I asked a bunch of the seniors to, Allie, where's Allie? I asked a bunch of the seniors, oh no, that was so sad. We'll just not use this one. I asked a bunch of the seniors to send me what they've learned through high school, and I got 100 things that they sent me. So I put it all together in a list, and it's like kind of super cool. So I want you guys to like have it because it's like, I don't know, I feel like any advice to get into high school is like the best advice because I got no advice. The only advice I got going into high school was it's not like High School Musical. That's literally the only advice I got going into high school. So here's 100 things that are.
We don't bust out something.
Okay, so Bonnie has an idea. So Bonnie says we should have each person read 3, and we'll just go through. So here we go.
For the seniors, still
Okay.
Thanks.
Here, you can have this one.
What about the seniors still in high school? That's still
What?
seniors still in high school. That's still.
Also, seniors in high school still need advice, so this isn't like finished.
No.
I have another one up here. I'll print some more ones.
Okay.
There's literally 100. I told you. There's so many. Okay. So Jeffrey, do we have a mic?
Yeah. I'll just serve battery.
The battery's in it? Check.
Okay.
The bottom's not screwed on all the way.
Do we have time for 3?
What is going on?
Well, there goes the battery.
Yeah.
Okay. So this mic may fall apart. Just don't let it. Just like, there you go. Just read like the first, like 1 through 3, and then pass it, and then you do like 4 through 6. 4 through 7.
It takes 10,000 failures to become an expert at something.